have posted to Google Classroom this presentation, which we're going to go over a little bit today. There are some videos in it that you will not need to watch if you're here with me now, because I'm going to go over it. Yes. That's going to be on slide. Yes, Emma. You do have to turn your compositional strategies in. I think it's slide 9. I need to check, but that's going to be on slide 9. It's okay if that's not there yet, okay? I know I'm a little confused. Okay, so yesterday you had an assignment, which was a pattern value range, and about half of you have turned this in already. This is probably the easiest assignment you'll ever have. We're looking at Emma's here. Shout out to Emma. Hers is awesome and really excellent. So what you had was a bunch of just random patterns, and you had to put them in value order. So see how these patterns translate from darkest at the top to lightest at the bottom. That's what your assignment was for yesterday. And if you haven't done that yet, you need to do that and hit the turn in button. So I know that you understand the value of a pattern. When I'm talking about the value of a pattern, I mean the overall kind of value that it reads. So if you like blur your eyes a little bit, then you can kind of see the value of certain patterns. So our first assignment is going to be a Zentangle, and we're not starting it yet, but we're going to start learning the techniques in order to do it successfully. So this pattern on here is a much darker value, meaning overall it's closer to black than, say, this pattern over here or this pattern over here. Okay, these patterns right here kind of read as midtones or medium grays because they have more white in them spread out. So being able to see the value of a pattern is important for this assignment because you're going to have to create contrast and variety with your values and your patterns. So on this presentation, I've given you lots of different kinds of Zentangles that we're going to do, different ideas. This is your outcome assignment. But what I really want to go over today is ink technique. Okay, so strong ink technique has clean lines, and the lines end where they're supposed to end. They don't hang off the edge. So to see, everything is nice and crisp and sharp here. And the patterns were like measured out. You know, there's equal distance between things on these patterns in this Zentangle. Poor ink technique will hurt your composition a lot and will hurt your overall project. These lines, they're not even straight. Kid didn't use a ruler, which is literally it's just the dumbest thing you can do. If you're trying to make a straight line, use a straight edge. Use a ruler to help you. So the lines are not straight. They have these little like hang-offs where the line doesn't end where it's supposed to end, right? The student wasn't like aiming very well. Things are messy and scribbled. Things are not measured. They are not consistent. This is a horrible technique. This would be a redo. You would have to redo your assignment if this is the technique you gave me. What we're going to do is we're going to practice creating patterns that make values, different values, see light, middle, dark, as well as developing strong technique. Let me zoom out a little bit. So in this presentation, it goes over strong technique, the example with horrible technique. And then this is a visual rubric, okay? So this is kind of what it looks like for the A, B, C, and F for ink techniques. And this is all the same pattern. So get close to it. So for here, This is all the same, like alternating stripes versus circles versus empty lines in a pattern. The F, you can tell nothing was measured. Lines aren't smooth, they're shaky. So I wasn't consistent and smooth with my arm movement. Things were rushed. These circles aren't circles, they're like weird fat sixes because I was going too fast. The lines this way are inconsistent, they don't hit, right? There's like empty space, they don't go all the way to the line. And even the space between the lines is sloppy and inconsistent. The better I get, the more clean and more measured my pieces become. So see, these lines are a little bit more regular, and most of them hit that outside edge, but still some of them do not. Okay, and the circles you can tell were rushed. And these ones are much smaller, these ones are much bigger. It's not very consistent here. Getting closer up, the better technique. All the lines fit in there. Things are pretty accurate. There's just a few little mistakes, right? See, that line doesn't go far enough. Some of these circles are a little rushed. This line goes too far. And then the A is really smooth and consistent technique. Equal spacing of distance for your patterns. Smooth, consistent lines for your Sharpie. So you will be able to use the visual rubric, which is on slide 9, to check yourself. You can do a pattern and then look at this rubric and ask yourself, okay, what grade am I earning for technique right now? This is not something that's negotiable, okay? This is the way you're moving your pen on your paper. Everybody can learn this. Most artistic technique is about effort and focus more than anything else. Okay, so all of this you can do. You can learn how to have better technique, but it does take patience. Just like learning anything, it takes practice and patience and effort. But if you're giving me this, you know, we're gonna keep redoing things until we're there before I let you move on. So today, there you go. This little video goes over some of those ink techniques and what looks good. You don't have to watch it if you're with me today because we're gonna go over them right now. If you have a sketchbook, I would follow along, and if you have your ultra fine point Sharpie, I would follow along, but if you don't, that's okay. You can do it when you get your supplies. I know that that's a mess, okay? So you just be patient with me and I'll be patient with you, and we'll do that. So when I am using an ultra fine point Sharpie, and this is a felt tip pen, which means there is liquid ink inside, and then at the end is a very tiny piece of felt, that porous fabric, and that carries the ink from inside of my pen down to my paper. You can think of that at the tiny level as like water is flowing out of a faucet at the tip of my pen. So if I create, if I want to make a smooth line, I need to move my pen at a smooth speed. If I stop in the middle and hold my pen on the paper, I'm going to get what we call bleed dots, where the ink has bled. I don't want literal blood on your paper or ink blood, okay? So we don't want those. The way to create lines so they don't have that is to know where your line is going before you start it. So if you're trying to make a smooth curved line, don't say, I'm gonna start my line and then, yeah, I think I'll curve it down here and then maybe I'll go up that way. And do it in an inconsistent way. This is not good technique. This line is ugly, okay? Here it looks, you can see my hands always shake, so you can see my shake here because I was going too slow. Here it's going too fast. It's not a consistent line. So I like to do what I call ghosting lines, which means you trace them in the air above where you want to draw first. So you almost create little instantaneous muscle memory. So then when you go to draw that line, it is smoother, okay? Now, say I did a line and I wasn't paying attention and my phone buzzed in the middle of it and it's got all these sorts of problems in it. I can refine that line technique by creating a calligraphic line. Calligraphic lines change thickness, so they kind of go thick to thin. So what I can do, and you can't do this too much so all your lines become like huge and massive and thick and ugly, but I can make areas of that line a little thicker to hide those dots. But you want them to go smooth. Oh, sorry, I went a little off. Smooth from thick to thin. So that will get a better grade than that, technique-wise, okay? When you are making straight lines, this seems ridiculous, but it doesn't matter how many times I say it, how many times we go over this, kids will still try and make their straight lines without a ruler. A ruler is your best friend, okay? Trying to draw straight lines without a straight edge is like trying to do calculus without a calculator. No one expects you to do that, okay? Smooth, consistent speeds will give you those nice straight lines. In your sketchbook, this is what I want you to do, okay? We're gonna create 6 rows of 3 boxes, 2 inches by 1 inch. Now, if you don't have your Sharpie yet, I want you to make your boxes in your sketchbook, and then you can wait until you get your ultra fine point Sharpie. Now, this seems silly, and some of you are going to be like, do you really have to explain this? Yes, I do. Some people don't know how to use a ruler still, and that's okay. Our sketchbooks are like 11 inches tall, so I have to fit 18 2-inch by 1-inch boxes. If you got a metal ruler in your Art to Go kit, this ruler is 1 inch wide. So you can do it easy by doing 2, skip a 1/2 inch, 2 inches, skip a 1/2 inch, 2 inches, and then I can just go to the bottom and do the same 2-inch things. Or maybe the same 2-inch things. So this is going to be 1 row of patterns. You're going to do that 6 times on 1 sketchbook page. Then you're going to practice creating different values with patterns and practice your technique while you do this. So what we mean by a range of value, see, for the top 2 rows, you're going to create patterns that are visually dark. Now that doesn't mean you just create a pattern and fill it with a ton of black, okay? So these huge big areas of black are not attractive. They're not pretty looking. I don't want to see these like big blobs of grossness, okay? Dark patterns means that your patterns are intricate and carry more value, more dark value than light value. If you did yesterday's assignment, which you should have all done, but if you haven't yet, you need to do it first. You have like 47 patterns to copy that are already in value order. So you can say, oh, I really like that one. I'm going to practice my ink technique with this pattern in this box. We're going to work on this over the course of like 4 days, 4 school days, which means you have to spend time in these boxes to create strong technique. And your pattern has to repeat in small amounts, okay? If you fill a box and you're like, I'm gonna do circles for my pattern. And you do something like this, that's not a pattern, okay? That's 3 circles. If you're doing circles, I expect to see small patterns where you can demonstrate your technique. If you're not making them small enough, you will redo them. If you are not doing them in clean enough technique, you will redo them. It is okay if your first few patterns don't have that great technique, because this is to practice and build up our technique. What is not okay is you not getting better and not trying. Now, effort in art looks different than a lack of effort. So if you think you can, be like, oh, here's my pattern, I tried stripes, and you turn that in, you're not trying at all. So you won't get any credit. I can tell if you've spent time, and I can tell if you haven't. So don't try and fool me, okay? You won't. What I want you to do today, and everyone can do this, is set up your boxes. 3 across, 6 down, just like this in your sketchbook, okay? If that's all you can do today because you don't have your Sharpie yet, that's okay. Do this assignment as well. And then I do not want you to do more than 3 patterns without then submitting them to me and letting me check your technique, okay? Because if you do all 18 patterns and then Miss Cohagen is like, this technique sucks, you need to redo them and do better, you're going to be like, ugh. But if you do 3 and then let me see them, then I can tell you how to improve before you do the entire thing, okay? Again, I do not want you to do all of these in one day. I want you to do like 3 a day for the next few days, or 4 a day for the next few days. I also want you to try and avoid what I call Beetlejuice patterns, okay? Sometimes we have Zentangles that look just like big chunks of different kinds of checkerboard, okay? Like solid black and solid white stripe patterns. And then in another place, it's a white background with solid black circles as a pattern. And then in another place, it's white and black checkerboard pattern. Your pattern should be more complex and more detailed than that, okay? So what I mean by that is, instead of straight stripes in this pattern, it's much more complicated. It's squiggly rough stripes, alternated filled with polka dots, and the stripes have these spiral circle things along them. So there's a lot more going on in this pattern than just stripes or dots. I need you to think beyond that, okay? Like this in this pattern. It's not just black stripe, thick white stripe, skinny white stripe, black stripe, thick white stripe, skinny white stripe. It's all sorts of different values with different types of stripes in there. Get creative with your patterns. These are called Zentangles, and they start with that word Zen, because they should be meditative and relaxing. They were invented by monks. So when you're stressing or you're pushing your wrist too hard and it's hurting, you're like fighting your muscles inside, you need to take a break and you need to move your wrist. A lot of the time, okay, look at me down in the little screen. I know I'm really little, but a lot of times when we're moving, especially just our wrist and hand, we shake and have muscle tremors. I shake all the time, but I can still make really smooth lines because I draw with my whole arm, my elbow, and my shoulder, okay? So it's a lot easier. If I'm trying to make, let me catch my breath and slow down. If I'm trying to make a vertical line and I'm only moving my wrist, so see, this part of my arm is staying straight. If I am only moving my wrist, I'm trying to make a straight line, it gets tight and it curves because I'm limiting my movement. If I'm trying to make a straight vertical line and I pull my elbow back, see how my shoulder and my elbow are moving back? I can make a straighter line much easier, quicker, and I'm not tensing my wrist to hurt my wrist. If your wrist is hurting, you need to shake it out and you need to move with your elbow and your arm a little more, okay? Let me give your screens back. Questions, comments, concerns, recommendations about that? Okay, to review, I know I've kind of word vomited a lot. It's called pattern value range, the assignment from yesterday. Do that first. All you have to do is click and drag the patterns darkest to lightest. Draw out your 18 boxes on this. Do like your first 3 or 4 patterns. Then take a picture, upload it to your slides, submit it to me for feedback. Does that make sense? If by next week you don't have your pen, that's okay. Well, it's not ideal. Try and get an ultrafine point Sharpie. They're not that expensive. But regardless, on Monday, you have to have your boxes drawn out, like ready to go with ink. We're potentially coming back to school. I don't know how, but when you come to school, you need to have your stuff done and you need to be caught up. Because I will be mean if you don't. And I won't be mean quietly. I'll be mean loud in front of the whole class. Because I'm mean. So please, please, please be responsible and turn your stuff in. Don't hit that button unless you make changes. Nothing makes me more furious than, oh, so-and-so finally turned in their work. Oh, nope, they didn't. This is my get to know you slides. Actually do it, okay? Your parents can buy it, but I do not. I would like you guys to chat your first and last name to make sure you guys are all here. And then unless you have any questions, you can go.
Bye.
Bye. Love you guys. Have fun practicing your ink.